Hey, everybody, Charles Dobbins, the multifamily attorney and the founder of the Multifamily Investing Academy. And I'd like to welcome you to this week's vlog, my video blog. I just got back from LA. I spoke in LA on Saturday. I tripped and fell at 7 in the morning while I was down checking out the room, tore my quadricep, thought I would have to cancel the event. Ended up having it anyway. 35 people showed up. It was great. That's for those of you. I don't do 1,000-person room boot camps. That's not my style. I teach more on like a classroom, college professor, college classroom amphitheater, where everybody can ask questions all day long. No, everybody tries to play stump the professor, and no one ever has. I'm proud to say. So, just finished our Monday night call, and as you can see, I'm in kind of a different scenario because I'm having trouble standing up, and so I had to rearrange where I'm sitting. And you all see this whiteboard. This is actually an inside joke among my students. One time I did a teaching lesson for my students, and on the video on our Monday night call, and it was not this whiteboard, it was some other whiteboard, and let's just say it kept falling down, and it was a calamity of errors, and it lives on in posterity in the archives, and it's a laugh riot. I didn't realize it was such a big thing until all my students said, "Can we do the whiteboard again?" And I said, "No, we're done with the whiteboard." So anyway, let me tell you about a couple. It was kind of a hodgepodge tonight on tonight's call. A lot of interesting topics, but let me just kind of run through some that came through, and I'm going to do three. I'll do three topics here. First one has to do with what do you do when it finds out that the due diligence is not all it was cracked up to be. In other words, you find a discrepancy in the due diligence. Do you kill the deal? Do you move on? Do you just say, okay, well, it's not that bad, we'll buy the property anyway? So let me give you the background on this particular student's property that he just completed the due diligence on. It's a nice little property. I love, I think I like this deal because the property's never meant for sale. The guy who built it years ago, his daughter, because he passed away, is trying to sell it. So it's cool. It's a cool little deal. This is the type of deal everyone is always looking for. So he goes and he does the due diligence. He comes back, Charlie, all things considered, the value of this property post-financial due diligence is 4.5% less, about $71,000. Then we offered. The due diligence numbers come from the data that's sent over and the review of the financials with the seller's accountant. The gross rent from the due diligence is only $120 less than the offering memorandum, but expenses are $6,400 higher. And the vacancy rate in the offering memorandum is 3%, but the due diligence, it's 5%. These differences are driving the $71,000 delta. What do you do? Do you go back and say, hey, this is not going to work. I need, we need to change this. And the answer, and I threw this out to all my students, and all but one came back with the same answer. And they all said, change it, go after it, get that money back, don't renegotiate the contract to get that $70,000. Now, let me tell you something. One thing that really burns me up is this concept of retrading. Oh, that's a 4-letter word in my book, okay? 4-letter word. Look at it. What the broker sent over was off by $6,200. They fudged their expense numbers by $6,200. Based upon the cap rate, that translates into $71,000. Guess what? That's 4.5%. That's more than what the broker's making. How about we take it out of the broker's commission if the guy thinks it's not that big of a deal, that we don't go back and renegotiate that number? Of course we go back to renegotiate that number. Folks, if you've ever seen me speak, and I start teaching what I call the power of the cap rate, I teach about these two people, Daddy Warbucks and his little boy, little Johnny. And I teach about the power of the cap rate for Daddy Warbucks and little Johnny. And what I say is that $71,000 that you're going to give this guy because he overvalued his property by 71,000, and he's going to take Daddy Warbucks is going to take that 71,000 and give it to his boy Little Johnny. Little Johnny is taking $71,000 out of your children's future. That's the way I look at these things. If you looked at these things that way, you'd go after that 71,000 as well, wouldn't you? So we all agreed he's going after the $71,000. All right, now I'm going to do one more. We'll keep it short tonight because I got this leg issue. It's killing me. It's killing me. But I don't even like painkillers. I just take the pain because I'm a tough guy. Somebody says, what happened to your leg? Oh, I'm an MMA fighter. Really? No, not really. Duh. Okay. All right, let me tell you about this deal. I love this deal. One of my students, she's a doll. She's a sweetheart. And she's been working on this deal. So when we first were working on it, the numbers that she came up to give value to the property came nowhere near what the seller wanted. Nowhere near. So she said, what do we do? So we do what we always do. We make an offer. She goes, but I'm not even close. Make the offer. Biggest lie in multifamily is the asking price. Just make the offer. She makes the offer. You know what happens? Broker calls back and says the seller wants to negotiate. Whoa. Okay, cool. I'm thinking, way to go. Let's make this thing happen. So we take it one step further because I had a bunch of students that were, I had one student that wanted to get a call with, the broker called up, said he wanted to talk to him about his offer. His offer did not get accepted, but he wanted to talk to him about the offer. Broker is new. The seller was new. My client was new, had never done things like this before. So the seller, my client says, hey, can you get on the call with the broker? I said, absolutely. That's what you pay me for. I get on the call with you and help you out every step of the way. Get on the call, and the broker's a little ticked. He says, I don't know who you are. You sent over your offer, but I have never spoken to you before. And then I kind of let the seller, my client have it afterwards. I said, did you talk to the broker? No, I didn't feel comfortable. I said, no, it doesn't work that way. You do not send over an offer and just like drop it on the fax machine, hit send. You build up a relationship with the broker. This is how they know who you are, how you're going to get your offer sold. Okay, so this is what you need to do every single time. And then I came to the realization several of my students were doing the same thing, where they weren't building a relationship with the broker. So we get a call back from the broker. I said, let's get on the phone with the broker. This is the deal that I'm talking about right now. We get on the phone with the broker and we start talking. And we just going round and round. And the broker says, the seller may be willing to do seller financing. Really? Tell me more. And then she proceeds to say that he's willing to finance 80% of the deal to make it happen. And you're like, okay, all right, well, this is kind of new. And we're realizing that nowhere in the offering memorandum did it say anything about seller financing being even on the table. But because we picked up the phone and started the negotiations and building a relationship with the broker, we find out about the seller financing. And it gets better. Watch this. So we come back and she and I sit down and we're going through the numbers and we're trying to make things work and we're trying to make it look really good. But guess what? Our numbers can't work. It's just not working. What this guy's asking for, and don't be that guy, and you'll hear me say that a lot. I said that a lot on tonight's call. Don't be that guy that says, well, it's seller financing. It's such a good deal. I have to take advantage of the seller financing, so I'm willing to overpay. No. Don't overpay ever for any type of real estate investment. Just don't do it. And, you can come up with valuations different ways, but if your job is, what you're trying to do is just to get the deal closed under contract, so you overpay without anything to back it up, no, that's not how we operate. You do not overpay for the properties, okay? So even with the seller financing, we couldn't get to the numbers that they were looking for until we get this email. Let me read this to you. This will warm the cockles of your heart. Tell me, and this is the broker speaking to my client. Tell me, that's how she starts off the email. Kind of like it already. Tell me, if you had 80% owner financing over 5 years with interest-only payments, what would the interest rate need to be to create your cash-on-cash return that you're looking for? And of course, all my students chime in on the chat box, 0, 0, 0. Well, I don't think 0 is going to work, but we're going to go back to the drawing board tomorrow and see if we can come up with some type of an arrangement. Obviously, these guys want to get to work on this thing and come up with some type of a deal. That is a cool position to be in. And folks, if I can teach you anything, the reason why this happened is because she made the offer. If you're not making offers, this is nothing more than a very expensive hobby. Make offers. It doesn't cost you anything. All right. Hey, if you're interested in finding out more about the owner forum, send us an email at info@multifamilyinvestingacademy.com, and we'll be more than happy to talk to you about it and see if we can figure out a way that we can work with you. All right. Good talking tonight. Always a pleasure. I'll see you next week. Next week, I've got a very interesting vlog. I'll give you some of the highlights after it's over, but we're interviewing one of my very first coaching students who's doing incredibly well. I think he was with me about 7 years ago, and he's full-time. This is his business. This is what he loves to do. And so we'll talk to him next Monday. All right, everybody. Good talking with you. Chat later.